Hi, I'm Chazz Palminteri, and welcome to the Sarah O'Connell Show.
Welcome to the Sarah O'Connell Show.
Hi, this is Chazz Palminteri, and listen to me carefully. I want you to subscribe to the Sarah O'Connell Show, because if you don't, I'll come looking for you.
Chazz Palminteri, welcome to the Sarah O'Connell Show. How are you today?
I'm really good, thank you.
I've got to say, it's an absolute honor to have you on my show. Genuinely, you're an all-time top of my wish list of guests I'd love to interview. So I'm honored to have you here today. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
I really mean that. And so you are, of course, a legendary actor and writer. But can you tell me, when you were a small kid, what did you aspire to be when you were growing up?
An actor and a writer.
Perfect.
Yeah, no, always. I always wanted to act, and I always wanted to write, to be honest with you, Sarah. I mean, the acting obviously started first, but the writing was right behind that. My mom would take me to the movies a lot when I would see, I just look up there and see the big, the Technicolor, and it just, I don't know, it always fascinated me. Like,
I love the story of how A Bronx Tale came to be, and it started off as a one-man show. But one thing I've always wondered is, when you were writing it, did you always envision it as you playing every single part, or did you consider hiring other actors to be up on the stage with you?
oh no, no, I wrote it to play every part. When I first did it, I wanted to play every part because I just had this idea that one person could do a play by himself on stage or a movie. And I did this thing with slapping my hand with film cuts, like cut, cut, cut. And it was just one of those things you envision in your head, and then it comes out. People think you're crazy, but then you do it. And the reviews came out and they were astounding, and everybody wanted it. The old story. They wanted it. They offered me $250,000 to walk away from my play, and I said no. Then they said 500. I said no, and I had $200 in the bank at the time. And then they said $1 million, and I said no. And then one night I did it. I did it again the next day, and the crowd was standing up cheering, and all of a sudden, my stage manager said, Robert De Niro just saw the show. He's waiting for you in the dressing room when I got off stage. And I walked in the dressing room, and there was Bob De Niro. I never met him before. I didn't know him. And he said he loved the movie. He loved what he saw. He thought it'd make a great movie. And I told him my problem. I said, I want to play Sonny, and I want to write the screenplay.
Right.
And he said, you should play Sonny, and you should write it because it's your life. He goes, I'll play your father, and I'll direct it, and we'll make it right. And that's how it happened.
It's incredible. I love that story. And I love how you knew not only your worth, but the worth of that script and what you could bring to it on the screen, and that you held your ground even when you hadn't done movies at that point. But I think it's so inspirational that you believed in it that much.
Yeah,
and
I
then
really
manifested
did.
it.
Well, Sarah, when you see when you see people in the theater jump up at the end and cheer and clap and cry, and that tells you something. You have something there. You can't fake that. You can't make that up. And the crowds kept getting bigger and bigger, and I just knew, well, if I can make 1,000 people stand up and cheer, why can't I make 1,000,000 people see it? So I just believed in myself.
I love that so much. The main quote, the main idea of the movie, if you like, is the saddest thing in life is wasted talent. Now, was it originally your dad that said that?
My dad said that. Yeah, that was my father's line. That's actually my father's line. I grew up in a neighborhood, a great neighborhood. Don't get me wrong. People always think I grew up in this like terrible, dark, depressing, drug-infested neighborhood, and it was not that.
Right.
Anything but that. It was a wonderful Italian neighborhood. Now, were there drugs there? Yes. Was there violence there at some times? Yes. But it was a wonderful Italian neighborhood, and I loved growing up there. And the mafia had a strong hold of the neighborhood, and everything was safe. But violence did happen at times, and that's what happened. That's what really started the whole thing. I was sitting on my stoop, just like you saw the movie. I don't know if you ever saw the one-man show. Have you?
I haven't. I want to, and
Okay.
I'm so tempted to get on a plane and just go see it.
Are you in London now?
I am, yeah, but it
Right. Well,
sounds
let me tell you
phenomenal.
something. I can't. I don't want to say it definite because I want to break the news soon, but I might I might be coming to the West End next year, so we'll see.
Really? Wow. Okay. Well, I'll be there every day to watch that. I've
Yeah,
watched the movie so much
yeah,
the
yeah.
last 30 years. And
30,
it's
yeah. Today, we're doing the 30th anniversary of A Bronx Tale. De Niro and I are doing. They're showing it June 17th at the Beacon Theater for the Tribeca Film Festival, and then De Niro and I are going to do a Q&A afterwards. So it's 30 years. It's amazing.
incredible. And it hasn't dated at all. It's endlessly rewatchable. It genuinely is. And I've
Yeah,
had
it's
to,
even more impactful today.
yeah, it is. And I love everything about it. Obviously, the characters are great, the story's amazing, but just there's so few movies where the whole world comes to life and it feels like a living, breathing place. And I really feel like it captured the spirit of what was intended.
Yeah, well, Bob De Niro directed it, and you can write a great script, and a bad director can ruin it. And he just made a great script even better. And it was really, he's a director, and if you look at it, and I wouldn't change a frame in it the way it was. I've said it 20 years ago, I said it 10 years ago, and I'll say it again now. It's just he did an incredible job on it.
Did Sonny actually exist, or was he
Yeah.
kind of like a composite or several people? He did. He was an actual.
Yes, he was actually a person. That wasn't his name, of course.
Right.
you know, but he did, but I did put a piece of my other an uncle of mine into him a little bit, and a piece of myself, and Sonny. But that was this guy, Sonny. He was like that. He was a very, very charismatic, handsome, tough guy, um, and he was a boss, and people followed him. Now, do I condone what he did? Of course not. But, not all gangsters are just these bad. He was very funny. He was, he had empathy. He was a good guy, and he cared about me. I always think people go, why did Sonny, well, I go, why? Why? Because I didn't rat on him. That's number one. And number two is I think he just took a liking to me. And he just said, you know what? This kid's okay, but it's not a gangster story. He didn't want me to do what he did.
Right.
In fact, the thing that makes Bronx Tale so unique, Sarah, is that it's not about good and evil. It's about gray and gray.
Right.
The boy took the best of Sonny and took the best of his father and became a man. That's exactly what he did. Sonny and my father were telling me the same thing.
Yeah.
Exactly the same. But my father was the one who said, I don't care what he's telling you. You are around that element, you will be influenced, and bad things could happen. And he was right, obviously. So, but it worked out okay.
It really did. But looking back now, do you still look back on that man fondly? Because he obviously inspired you and gave you good advice and cared for you as well. So does he take up positive space in your memory? Yeah.
Yes, I look back at him with fondness and fun memories.
Yeah.
But it's I have to give my dad the most credit, and my mom. They're the ones who really, as much as Sonny kept me away from a lot of that stuff, the love I had for my parents really stopped me from going over the edge when it got close. I didn't want. Could I have been a wise guy? Yes, of course I could have, but I never really wanted to. I was an artist. I wanted to write. I wanted to act from a little boy, and I knew my father knew that. That's why he said, don't waste your talent now. It could happen like that. In the street, things could happen like that, and it's over. And that's why he wrote on this card, the saddest thing in life is wasted talent, on a little index card. And he put it in my room when I was a little boy. And I put that same card, not that same card, but I wrote on other cards.
Right.
I put one in my daughter's room and one in my son's room. And they're both, my son is 27 now. He's very successful. He's a writer, actor. And my daughter is University of Michigan, and she's graduating and she's in the arts. So both of them, it just my wife and I instilled to the work ethic like my father instilled in me.
It's really important. And am I right in understanding? So your dad was the bus driver as seen in the movie,
I
but
was a bus driver.
he wasn't late for work one day in 30 years. Is that correct?
30 years, never late.
Yeah, amazing.
Never late. 30 years. I mean, but that was, they don't make them like that no more. He was like that old school, that never late, show up on time. I think he took like 5, 6 days in 30 years. It just was all they cared about that generation. They were the greatest generation. They cared about getting up, going to work, and taking care of their family. That's it.
Incredible.
And the mothers too, and the wives too.
Of course.
They were just tough generation, both of them. My mother was very tough.
And I love that you got to honor them in that movie. And speaking of which, what was it like acting opposite the child incarnation of you from your own childhood in that movie?
I kind of the artist took over when I was doing the movie, but every once in a while there'll be a scene and it would just like, whoa, I would remember one in particular was when De Niro was talking to the boy and he slaps the boy and he says, the working man's the tough guy. I'm the tough guy. I remember just watching that, getting the chills, and I just flashed right back. That scene, I had tears in my eyes when I was watching it. And then the scene in the City Island when he takes his son, because I used to ride the bus with my father. And at the very end, my father would go through the bus and make sure it was all clean. People would drop candy bars or whatever things. Yeah. And he'd say, come on, clean up. And we go through the bus and we get all the papers, and then he'd do the next route and then come back and we do it again. And when I saw that scene, when I went to City Island to shoot it, it was like, whoa. It was pretty astounding.
A Bronx Tale was Robert De Niro's directorial debut. So he's not only in front of the camera, he's behind it too. What was he like to work with in both capacities?
Well, I mean, look, we're talking about possibly one of the top, well, he was the greatest actor of our generation, probably one of the top of any generation.
Of course, yeah.
He's an artist. All he cares about is the work. That's all he ever cared about. It was only about the work. And it didn't matter how long it took. It didn't matter how long we had to wait. It didn't matter how many times we had to do it again, or how many times he had to change the set. It had to be right. And, he told me he was going to make it right, and he made it right. He did.
He really did. And did you ever consider, or were you ever offered to make a sequel with Joe Pesci's Carmine in charge?
Yeah, all the time. All the time. And I never really had a great idea about it. I thought about it, and could I have done it for the money? Yeah, probably. And maybe it would have been okay, maybe. But we're talking about a movie here that's, to me, in my opinion, is a classic. I wrote these archetypes, these people. Why is it, Sarah, that it's a huge movie in Japan? Japan. How do you figure that? In Europe, it's huge.
Yeah.
They study the movie in film festivals. They study it in theater, in colleges. I go to colleges and do a master class on it and just teach about the screenplay. So I just wanted to leave it alone. I didn't want to touch it. I just didn't. There's not many times you make Godfather 1 and Godfather 2, and they're both so incredible movies. And then Godfather 3, obviously, now. But I wanted to do other things. And I just didn't have a great sense. What am I going to write about? So I didn't want to do it.
Oh, that's completely fair enough. Every time I watch that movie, my mind just imagines what happened next, on that street with all these different people slightly older just going about their lives with all those dynamics. And I think that's testament to the world that you built and you captured from your own life.
Right. I think it would make a great TV series.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, that I think about sometimes. But we'll see. We'll see.
It's very interesting. Because I think going back to what you said about being popular in Japan and Europe, there's so many universal themes in that movie. It's about families, it's about growing up, it's about the neighborhood you live on, it's about making right choices or wrong choices, or seeing your friends make potentially wrong choices, and do you go with them or do you hold yourself?
Right.
You know, so I think it resonates with people around the world, no matter where they're from or what their culture is.
Exactly. And it resonates with people, the father, son, where the father's telling the son, do the right thing. So many people, Sarah, come over to me and say, I was, my father and I have been estranged for years. And then he wanted me to go see your play, and we saw your play, and we've been back together ever since, and I've heard that a lot.
Wow.
And it makes me feel good,
It's a
or
special
some
thing,
guy,
yeah.
or some kid will come over to me and say, I was a drug addict, and my father took me to see your play, and I told him I wasn't going to waste my life anymore, and I turned my life around. And I go, wow, that's the greatest compliment I ever could get.
Yeah. And that's the power of art, and testament to you as an artist, and not just having lived through that stuff, but being able to tell that story in such a way that it resonates with people.
Yeah, and from all over the world. I
Mm.
was in Saudi Arabia, and they love the movie there. I don't. Did I think of all this when I wrote it? Of course not. I just wrote this simple story about my life, and it just was lightning in a bottle, and it just connected with everyone. And I'm happy to see that my children are following my wife and I, and got studying her. My daughter's in London right now.
Oh, fantastic.
She's studying at RADA. This
Very
is her
nice.
third year in a row she's at RADA, and they just, they just want to be the best they can be, and that's all I
Mm.
want from them.
That's so great. And they've obviously grown up having you as the biggest inspiration. You've worked on some of the best films in the world. And yeah, I know they'll continue that success with your teachings. I think that's great. And I just wish them the best of luck.
Yeah, well, thank you. I appreciate that, and uh, I really have I'm looking forward to coming to London, and at the West End and doing the show, because I think they'll really love it there. I think they
Mm.
will, because I know I have a big following on my podcast.
Yeah.
I have I have my podcast, the Chazz Palminteri Show, and my second biggest country besides the United States is England, the UK. So I go, okay, well, that's really good. And I always tell people, if they ever want to know where the show is in America, all they have to do is go to chazzpalminteri.net, or go to my Instagram, Chazz Palminteri, and they will be able to see where my show is appearing.
And I highly recommend it. I spend 99% of my waking life just working on my show, but every time you drop a new episode, I'm always watching it. I love the short episodes as well. And speaking of which, a frequent guest on your show has been on mine as well, Kathrine Narducci, who was, of course, in A Bronx Tale. I love that you're still collaborating
Yes.
together. Love Kathrine.
Kathrine is, yes, we do a special segment with Kathrine Narducci and Tara Connor Tracy, a comedian, and we have them on my show. And it's just great. I love working with Kathrine. She's a wonderful, wonderful actor and a great person. And listen, but that's what it's about. Be good at what you do and be well liked. And in the world, you'll be very successful. It's just that simple.
It's so true. And so, of course, you started in A Bronx Tale, but is my understanding correct that before you filmed that, you actually filmed Oscar with Sylvester Stallone because
Yes.
De Niro wasn't available yet?
He wasn't available yet. That's correct. You've done your homework, Sarah. Yes.
Of course.
And that's so nice. It's so refreshing to talk to someone who's done the homework. Yes. I had to wait for Bob De Niro because obviously, Bob had other movies in line. But once he finished that, then we did. Yeah, and it was great to do Oscar with Stallone. And the great thing about Sly is that the only time this ever happened before me was Sly. It happened with Stallone and it happened with me. It really
Right.
only happened twice in the history of motion pictures, where somebody wrote something and refused to sell it and ended up being in it, So I was able to talk to him about it, and he gave me some great advice. He just said, look, if you really believe in it, stay with it, which was really nice to hear. And I love working with him. He does, let me tell you something, one of the brightest guys in the business I've ever met. Smart, savvy. And, listen, the man invented the sequel. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's why he's Cy Sloan, you know. So
And
it
he's
was
still making them.
right, and he's still making them, right? And they're all good and they're all successful. So you know, he's one hell of a smart guy, I can tell you that.
He really is. And then, so you went from making A Bronx Tale to Bullets Over Broadway. You played Cheech, and you were Academy Award nominated Best Supporting
Yeah.
Actor. How did that change your life when that happened?
Well, I mean, when you get a nominated for Academy Award, all of a sudden, like everybody knows who you are now, and you become even more marketable. So my career just kind of really just well, because Bronx Tale, and then that came out, and so I've been riding that wave for 30 years now. So it's been great. But you know what? When I say riding the wave, but I've kept myself disciplined. I kept myself still writing. I kept myself still trying to pick good movies to do, you know, Usual Suspects and Analyze This. And, you know, I've been very fortunate. I've been in a lot of really wonderful movies, you know. But I think you know what, Sarah, you make your own success by living right and doing the right thing. Look, is anybody perfect? Of course not. I always tell people, I go, wait a minute, I don't want to sound like I do everything right. Do I screw up sometimes? Of course I do. But I try to get right back on the other side as soon as I can. And that's what it's about. You know, we're all a work in progress.
Yeah.
Nobody's got it together.
I think all you can ever do is, based on the information you have, the situation you're in, is make the best decision you can at that time. And even if you don't make the right one, you know that you gave it all the thought that you could, and then you just deal with whatever situation you end up in. But you know that you tried your hardest in that moment, so you don't feel like you failed because you worked hard.
Exactly. I mean, I like to read books about successful people and what made them successful, and I always read these self-help books, and I enjoy reading these inspirational books a lot. And I read this book, and it said the number one quality, because they got all the CEOs in the world, and they said, what is the number one quality? Why you're here today? And they all said certain things, but it came down to one thing. Now you would think, I would say when I said, well, was it perseverance? Was it grit? Was it determination? No, the number one thing was adaptability. How you adapt to every situation, how you can pivot. Emotional intelligence, that's what it was. And I could, and I get it. I understand it now, you know. And so every time I'm about to make an emotional bad decision, I think of that and I go, whoop, wait a minute. Okay. Think about what you're about to say now, or what you're about to write. You know, I tell people, you got to be very careful. I tell my children, don't write anything in a tweet or on Facebook that you don't want the world to see, you know. So you have to be very, very careful. Your life is on record now. Sometimes you get angry and you say something and then you realize you regret it later. So
yeah, it's better to type it and delete it and just get it out of your system. I think.
You're right. Right. Type
just
it
say it
and
into a
delete
pillow.
it.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right, Sarah. You're absolutely right.
So true. And so, speaking about that wave you had after your Academy Award nomination, then you, of course, starred in The Usual Suspects, playing a US customs agent. But I was wondering, can you tell me, do you prefer playing good or bad guys?
You know, I really like doing both. I like doing both. There's something about the bad guy that I like a lot. I don't know why. But
you're very good at that.
The bad guy is always the better part. You know, because the bad guy makes the action happen. The good guy is usually the passive one.
Right.
That's why when you at the Academy Awards, the supporting actor roles are the hardest to get, because those are the great roles, the great women villains, the great men villains. You know, you have these great, great characters. I like doing both. I like doing both.
And you're phenomenal at both. And it's interesting too, because just because the person is technically the good guy, they might be the bad guy in that movie if you're following the villain.
Yes.
It's just perspective, right?
That's exactly right. Really, the bad guy, what's the difference between a bad guy and a good guy? You know, somebody said it once, I wish I could remember. You know, the bad guy says, I'm hurting, so because I'm hurting, I'm going to make everybody else hurt. The good guy says, I'm hurting, but you know what? I don't want anybody to hurt like me, so I'm going to help them. It's very close.
Yeah.
Very close.
It's really interesting. And so
Yeah.
one movie of yours that I hadn't previously seen before researching this, and I'm so glad that I have, came out in 1996. Your second screenplay, Faithful. I love that movie. You starred alongside Cher. You had such great chemistry together. It's such a fun movie. If you haven't seen it, everyone, I highly recommend you seek it out.
Yes, thank you. It was a very successful play. And when I wrote the play and then I wrote the movie, and it became I really love the movie myself. Thank you for saying that.
Yeah, it was so much fun, and I had no idea what was going to happen. And I love the idea that it was a stage play, and it worked so perfectly. I can see how it would translate from one to the other.
Well, I came from the theater. I started in the theater, and my roots always go back to the theater. I'm a member of the Actors Studio. I'm writing another play now, and so I'm always back at the theater.
That's so great, and I'm so excited to see what you work on next, because the way you write characters and situations is brilliant perfection. Really mean that. And so you mentioned earlier on too, you were in Analyze This, amazing comedy, Robert De Niro. At what point did you hear about that movie, that it was in development, and how did you get involved?
Well, they just offered me the role of Primo Sedone. They wanted a character to compete with Bob on the same weight, and they chose me, and they called me, and they made me an offer, and we worked it out, made the deal, and I loved it. It was great. I really enjoyed doing it.
Here's a question I ask every guest on the Sarah O'Connell Show. Can you tell me a fun fact about you, something we may not know, a hobby, a party trick, something like that?
I'm a very spiritual person. People may not know that, but I don't go to church every Sunday. I do sometimes, but I believe in a higher power, and I believe in God, and I believe it's because of that I'm here today. Is because of my belief in God. I really do. I think that God just looked out for me and shined on me and blesses me. I don't know. I know that seems kind of, some people don't believe in that, but I do. I do believe in that, and I think it's kept me on the straight and narrow. You got to believe in something, and that's what I believe in. I just don't believe we're just here. We do something, we live, and we die, and it's over. I don't know. I just never believed that. Never.
I think it's really important, no matter what you believe, to give life your own meaning, if it's your own goal, or to support other people, whatever it is, to learn a thing, to, be the best version of you that you can be, and just try and make the world a better place. I think that's really important.
Oh, that's everything, Sarah, is to leave this world a better place than it was when the great movie, It's a Wonderful Life. I love that movie because he realizes at the end that if he wasn't alive, all these people would have had tragedies, that he saved all these people, So every life is a universe. When you have a child, you didn't create just a child, you created a universe. My son will get married, and he will have children, and those children will have children. My daughter will get married, and they will have children. So it's just this multiplied of universe and people, and God knows what they will bring to the world. All good, I hope. And so a person, to create a human being, a child, is not just a child. You just created a whole new universe.
That's so true, and that's such a beautiful way of putting that. Final question. Have you got any messages for people watching the Sarah O'Connell Show and your fans around the world?
My message is, if you want success, there's two things you have to do. Just be really good at what you do and be well liked. That's it, and you'll never fail.
No pressure.
No pressure.
No pressure.
God bless you, Sarah.
Well, Chazz Palminteri, it's an absolute honor to talk to you today and celebrate your career a little bit. I could talk to you forever. I've loved you, and A Bronx Tale and Godfather of Harlem and everything in between. And you're welcome back on my show anytime.
Anytime. I'd love to come back and talk even more next time.
You're very welcome. And thank you to everybody watching at home. Be sure to share, subscribe, give this video a big thumbs up, and leave lots of lovely comments. I'll see you all again soon for another episode of the Sarah O'Connell Show. Bye.
Bye.
That's right. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. And if I come to the West End, we'll do an interview there.
It'd be my honor, and I can't wait to see it. And if not, I'm getting on a plane and I'm coming to see you in New York.
I'd love to come to New York. This is Chazz Palminteri. And listen to me and listen to me carefully. I want you to subscribe to the Sarah O'Connell Show, because if you don't, I'll come looking for you.
Thank you for everything.
God bless. Thank you so much.
Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.